with two other people.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, were you nervous about recreating the chemistry that you had in the pilot?
Yeah, it was a mixture. I was excited to come back, and I was sad they weren't coming back. So it felt like it was going to be a whole new beast, because you went into the pilot thinking it was going to be something, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
And then at the read-through, sat down with these guys, I was like, oh well, there we go. We've locked into something else, and you sort of know who your character is by the way that you instinctively work with other actors. And I knew who my George was with Andrew and Guy, and then suddenly with these guys, I was like, that's who George is. So it just felt right, and it felt like the kind of perfect storm when we all came together in that first read-through.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, guys.
He was like our welcoming anchor.
So season 1 of Being Human is still one of the most popular shows on iPlayer. What do you think it was about your guys' tenure on the show that's been so lastingly attractive to the fans?
I think it's always hard to pinpoint what makes the show work so well. I mean, I think the premise is quite original and different, and the writing's just really, really strong. Mixed with, half decent acting and some good, subplots and all the rest of it. And it shot so well. We had a good crew. Everything just gelled on our show. Everybody was happy off set. I mean, I've worked on a few jobs since, and it's generally all pretty upbeat and great too, but you do have days. We just didn't have them on that set. You walk off and everyone's just in great form, and I think it just fed us with this nice energy and kept this unit together and kept it strong. I guess that shows on the show when you watch it now. We definitely felt it.
I think it's the chemistry. Yeah, I mean, as Aidan said, you go off and you do other shows and stuff, and you realise just how unique a time Being Human was, a unique a job. And I think the job and the people and the script and everything, but also timing-wise for all of us individually as actors coming up, you can't ever be back in that position again. You can't sort of recreate that. It's a bit like, for me, I didn't go to university, and I feel like this is my university experience. And no matter how much brilliant your life is and your career is after you leave university, that those bonds and those experiences you have at that time in your life so significant. But it felt a bit like, school was out when we were off. We were sort of away from home and living in digs together, and it was a very unique, special time, I think, for me anyway, personally, let alone professionally. But I think it reads. I think you can see that on camera.
I think the show kind of exceeds what its kind of parameters of being part of sci-fi and supernatural. Is that sci-fi fans are the best, and they're so loyal, and they commit to it, and they will watch things over and over and over again to gain more knowledge and information from all the little intricacies of it. But then this show kind of went beyond that, and people responded to it because of the relationships in it and the emotions, and they could see the metaphors and three people kind of struggling to be human, to kind of live in the world and what it is to live in the world with issues, and I think that's why it's been one of them shows that gets rediscovered, and hopefully for years upon.
Do you think that the medium of sci-fi helped to bring out the more human issues that people experience on a day-to-day basis? So using that to
that
draw
metaphor
out.
Well, I think that's what Tovey originally wrote the show about: someone with rage, someone who was agoraphobic and painfully shy, and someone who maybe had addiction issues, and that he couldn't access it, and suddenly he was like, werewolf. He first came to the werewolf, and then the rest just fell into place. And I think as soon as he got into that, it came alive. But it's rooted in true human kind of foibles, behaviours, Yeah.
What were the most human sides of the characters do you think that your two characters had, and on the flip side, the most monstrous sides of them as well? That they're trying so hard to be human.
I think the obvious things are trying to be human werewolf, trying to be human vampire, but you didn't seem to have any darkness in you. When Annie tried to kind of muster up her poltergeist abilities, it was still always kind of half-hearted because she didn't want to hurt anyone. So out of the border characters, Annie was definitely the nicest. She didn't change. She did have a darkness she had to overcome. She was the innocent, really.
She was, but I would say her, the thing that she struggled with was being seen. And I think it was probably more in season 2 where her visibility was so sort of dependent on other people's approval, and then the whole thread, the story thread of she would disappear without these two. It sort of leaned into her codependency and that need to be seen and valued by external, and I think that was her inner conflict, is feeling valuable just by herself and being able to find that strength, which I think by the end she has. And it's interesting she's the last one to leave, because she did exist by herself eventually, and as much as the home and the boys were her rock by the end, she didn't need them to exist, which I think was probably her parallel with the human trait of codependency. Yeah.
What were the standout story arcs from the time that you had on the show? Like, in looking back, what stories do you really remember the most, like, connecting to for each of your characters?
I think for Mitchell, when Mitchell started to rise the ranks of some of the other vampires, hang out with them more and get a sense of what was going on. And when he set himself up in this garage, and it was a time when Herrick thought he was really coming into his own, and it was a way that Mitchell was really understanding what was going on. I think that was one of the first storylines that really brought Mitchell out of the house and separated Mitchell from his two flatmates. He became...
When he went on to Box Tunnel 20. When we were losing Mitchell.
That's right.
And then there was all this stuff on the news, and it was horrific.
Yeah.
And when it dawns on us that was our friend had committed that atrocious crime.
It just suddenly felt like there was a stranger, like, in the house.
Yeah,
I think
it was threatening,
such
it was
a turning
scary,
point.
and that as an arc was such a... That was season 3, and it was such a lovely kind of thing to play.
A vampire and a werewolf and a ghost all living in the same house together is a pretty scary situation. Have any of your real life housing arrangements ever been half as scary?
Well, we didn't live together per se, but we lived like in little.
Means just us.
Yeah, but in general speaking. But I've not. I mean, I've been pretty lucky in that I've lived by myself.
I'm sure I've been kicked out and have kicked people out in the past. I tend to live alone these days.
Yeah.
Russell, any horrifying roommates? Or
I had a woman turn up and was on my couch when I woke up one morning a little while back. She was asleep and she stayed for 2 days, and I didn't know who she was. And a friend had a spare key, and apparently I've been told that, I don't know, but she'd been let in, and she helped herself to all my food. Came back one day, there was cigarette butts, and she'd been smoking doors, and she was asleep on my bed.
Wow.
And
She
was eating, she was Italian. She's like, I can't leave the house. I want to leave, but I feel high, I feel sick. I said, what have you eaten? She's eating Doritos. And she just ate Doritos. And then she left one day. She left. I'd love for you to pack it over. Gone. But then she left like this pashmina behind with like frayed ends, and that was it. She's gone into the night. I don't know where she's gone. I put it all on Twitter. Couch girl it was. Yeah. But that was just bizarre.
Brilliant.
We just like. She was very, very odd.
Yeah.
Appeared out of nowhere. But you know, when you just wake up in the morning, you're like, what the? Who there?
No one knows what that is. That's literally quite a unique experience. You know, when you wake up and there's a strange woman on your couch. Every day.
Yeah, that's me. That was me.
Never happened to me either.
How do you think you developed as actors through the series?
Better, hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully we got more...
That to me was training. I mean, like, certainly, I mean, because the beautiful thing about being human is you're making people laugh, cry, there's adventure stuff, there's occasionally you have to try and do something that resembles an action sequence, and we got to play so much. It's not a straight comedy, and it certainly didn't feel like, and also the very domestic scenes, which I personally love, but keeping that kind of naturalism, and also I think it was, again, something I took for granted at the time, a real character-driven piece.
Yeah.
Like, all the scenes were only... when you fall in love with characters, I think they can take you anywhere. And so I think, for me, Being Human was the first time I ever really got to really flesh out and live a character and kind of feel like I knew Annie mannerisms, I knew how Annie would react to certain things. And as an actor, particularly with TV, very rarely have time to invest in that, and then time to play it out. So for me, I think being human grew me as an actor. Really did, and spoilt me a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, me too. I mean, just showing up every day and living on the set. I mean, you can't not learn a bunch of really important lessons as an actor. You know, you're there all the time. It's one of my first jobs, and just having a clapperboard come up and just turning over a lot and putting a lot of hours down was just invaluable for me. You know, and gave me a lot of confidence. Really.
Is it your first job?
Kind of one of the very first ones. Yeah.
We made him. We like to all take credit for that.
Yeah, maybe what?
Vampire.
So Aidan, did your theatre background help at all in your performance?
Yeah, very much. I mean, I'd done maybe 5 or 6 years of just theatre prior to being human. So this was kind of the only experience I had on camera. But yeah, I mean, it's again invaluable being on stage, but doesn't equate in the same way. You know, sitting down with these guys and trying to make it, talking about whatever we would talk about and to make it as natural as possible. And it's not something you necessarily pick up in drama school. You just have to be there and just connect and be aware and just respond to the other actor and listen and that kind of thing. So they were all those important lessons.
Thank you.
The show had a lot of memorable guest stars during its tenure. You mentioned earlier you want to be Kirby.
Kirby!
Yeah.
Thank you.
So like characters like that really stick out. Were there ones like that you had that you just thought, I want you to come back more, or like you're really glad you got to explore those areas?
So many. I think probably for me one of the loveliest things that kept coming back is that our guest stars enjoyed their experience on the show, and
they were a lot of people were fans of the show, and then they were on it, and that's the best feeling. The best feeling
to attract that kind of calibre. Because I think
Robson Green was like biggest fan of Being Human. He petitioned for himself to be in it,
and
then he was in it. And so he was like every day. He was like.
It really touched us, because I think we feel so close to the show, but no one, I don't even think, even up to the producer level, felt possessive over the show. It felt like a real a thing that people were invited into and invited to feel part of. So all our guest stars, I think, brought something so special, and I think all of us were which is again something in hindsight I can take for granted. We kind of came to the show so young and sort of humble that we felt we were lucky to have them on our show.
Yes.
And so there was never that thing of there wasn't egos bolstering around, which made the whole thing.
No, it wasn't cliquey.
It wasn't cliquey or kind of. We felt particularly.
We were like, who's playing this?
Giddy.
Who's playing this?
Yeah.
Oh my god, really?
Yeah, and so excited to have the fresh energy come in and welcome them in and learn from them. Like, I think that atmosphere is very rare. Particularly, I think as you get a bit older. People get you feel like if you go on someone else's show, you're in someone else's house. It just didn't feel like that on Being Human. So I think all our guest stars would be more than welcome to come back, but really enjoyed their time. And I think, again, a credit to Tovey is he would be very careful with even our guest stars. No one just felt plonked in and plonked out. They had their own story that they could see through to the end. And for most of them, I think they were pretty happy with the journey that their characters took, which is very satisfying as an actor to feel like, no, I've told my little thread and I'm good to go. And I felt like that was true of my arc with Annie even. So, and then it's bittersweet. You're ready to leave, but it's sad to leave.
Which of you was the catalyst for the most outtakes?
By far.
That was constantly professional.
On your close up, and then
say that.
they would turn around, and Russell is probably hands down the funniest. I don't laugh the way I laugh when I'm with Russell with anyone else. He is so funny, which is a treat,
and it was like
a pain. Make us laugh. Do something funny. No, but like giddy. The giggles was the biggest. Like it was all. That was the worst thing for outtakes. I think was just.
Well, you don't corpse much though. You can keep a straight face. That's the thing.
I'm so good, but Russell a handful of times got me.
Yeah,
but otherwise, I'm very good.
You'll see scenes where I'm clearly supposed to be. Mitchell's supposed to be looking at George, because he's speaking to him or whatever. I just can't do it. I would have to look another way. I mean, constantly just looking at my feet or whatever. I couldn't look at Russell.
Yeah, there was a few.
Remember the day where we had to look at the back of their heads, or they put some of the crew were actually crying and they had to leave, and they put tennis balls up for us or something, didn't they? To look at.
Well, I remember the scene where I'm on Mitchell's lap pretending to be a dummy.
Yeah.
And you and Nina walk in, you and Sinead walk in.
Look at each other.
And we all have to have this standoff where we all look at each other awkward, and it just did not happen. I mean, hours were going past and we couldn't get the scene because we just couldn't stop laughing. And to the point where everyone was laughing. Yeah. And it just was impossible.
Cost the BBC a bit of money.
Yeah. Sorry, my bad. But his bad. Because it was your, I don't know what it was, you were the catalyst to that.
The good old days.
Yeah. Not to laugh.
I'm sorry, look.
Has it made you have more of an attraction to genre media, like seeking out other fantasy, sci-fi acting jobs?
Yeah, totally. I mean, just for like the fan base. I mean, I said it earlier, but the fan base for just doing things like this all the time and sci-fi fans and that supernatural level, there's a huge loyal group of people which are just incredible and loving, and everybody we've met today so far, we just sit there going like, everybody's so nice. Everybody's so nice and happy to be here. It's a very happy medium, isn't it, that people really geek off about and embrace, and that's the nicest thing to be a part of that world, to always now have that, you know, because like we've done Doctor Who and things like that, that's like something that's going to be with you forever. There will always be people that, you know, remember you for that, and that's great.
And I think it's a really interesting and creative way to get into some very deep subjects of the human condition, of politics and social justice. Like, there's a lot of heavy things that sci-fi tackles in the most entertaining and accessible way. So I'm like, whatever gets people talking or thinking about the world that we live in a different way and engages people is all right by me. And like I say, the actual things that some of us as characters got to deal with in such a fun way, I think is really cool. It's really, really cool. So it opened my eyes to that for sure.
Do you think you related to your characters at all, like on a personal level?
Yeah, man.
I think you kind of have to. I mean, I think it's impossible not to. I don't know how you play a character, and it's a really good question. I mean, you sometimes get asked it, and I don't know how you don't get involved emotionally. I mean, you have to think about it. You have to make those correlations and those connections all the time, and then before you know it, you're so far in. It's sometimes hard to decipher, you know, which bit is you and which bit is the character, and how much you've given to it, and how much you've been influenced by the writing or inspired by different sources. But yeah, I would think I probably gave a lot to it.
Yeah, every emotion you putting that character through, you have to kind of instinctively pull from somewhere in you. So definitely, and as the writing went on, they kind of leaned towards us. You know, they knew our voices, they knew our mannerisms, our kind of rhythms, and that's definitely you put yourself more into that. But I think, you know, as long as you love, is that fun? Yeah. As long as you love your job, you commit like completely to it.
And then going back to the thing of the relationship that all the three of us have. Is it alright now?
Yeah, it's
I think.
You want to check it out?
Yeah, well, in a minute. Just about to get deep. But the trust that was there between us. I mean, like for 4 years, very informative 4 years of our lives personally. I think we got a chance to bring that to set, all of us. So as you go through loss and love and family stuff and friendships and stuff, we got to play it all out on set, and because we do have such a chemistry and trust with each other and friendship, it was a really safe place to bring all that stuff. So even, I think all of us do relate to our characters, but even more so because we got to return as our lives naturally progressed.
Good job, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I would sign that petition.
Yeah. I'd be all for that. I'd sign that petition.
You could be my doctor. Who? Russell Tovey.
Yeah, he'd smash it.
He'd kill it. He'd kill it. They'd be very lucky to have him.
There we go.
That's it.
Yeah.
Lenora.
we pick it up exactly where we left off from the last year. So it's a time when Ross and Donalds have just lost a child. His company is down the pound. They're broke, and he's being arrested for. He looks like he's going to prison. So it's a sad state of affairs to kick off the series.
Fun start.
Yeah.
So it's a cheery beginning. There's just so much story in it, and all the characters have a massive arc in the next series. I think we're 10 episodes next year.
You got a massive arc.
Yeah, huge.
Are you in it?
That's what people say.
Are you in it?
I'm in all of them.
Oh,
all of the episodes. I made all of them. Thank you so much.
It's done all right.
I'm in all the deleted scenes, everything. It's going to be huge this year. Yeah, I mean, it was big the first year, but with all the support and the fan base that we've accumulated, it's going to be a big one next year. He's been. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say.
Oh, all right.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Did you find it very different filming the period stuff as opposed to, say, the sci-fi being human?
I don't know, difficult. I mean, it is very different.
Yeah, different.
Oh, different. Sorry,
Yeah.
it's difficult. It's another world, quite literally, actually, for
Which do you
these
prefer?
characters. Which do I prefer? They're so different. It's hard to call it. They're so very, very.
It's difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not easy. But when we're sat right here,
Yeah,
to make it
it's a really hard call to
Right. Yeah.
don't worry about it.
you know.
Yeah.
I have a horse. I ride a horse in the other show, so I get to hang out with a horse all day.
Okay.
Horses are great.
Let's get a new question.
Do you ever
Is
have
that
any
slippery?
issues dealing with horses on set?
You love a horse, don't you?
Oh, I love horses. And I usually not really. I love a horse. Saddle up and just ride away. There's not much to it really.
He does love a horse.
Not really. No, they're good. They're well behaved.
Are they?
Yeah,
They
yeah.
train them up good.
They train them up good, and I'm a pretty decent jockey, so you know.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, totally. Did you ever do it? Did you give it a shot in Banished? Oh, you didn't have horses in Banished?
We didn't know we had kangaroos. They're tough. They're tough to ride, but if you kind of hold on to them,
There's a knack.
you can get your hand in there.
That's right.
Riding kangaroos.
There's never going to be a second series. No.
Yeah. No.